Welcome to the Ground and Pone Podcast, a weekly show for fans of combat sports, gaming, entertainment, and plenty more. I'm Brian Shea, online content director at Game Informer, joined as always by Scott Fontana, the New York Post's MMA reporter. This last weekend, we didn't have any major MMA promotions active, so this might be a gaming-heavy episode, but we do have UFC Vegas 56, the worst naming convention ever, to look forward to, plus a tiny bit of news. Scott, first off, how are you doing today?
You know, I'm doing good, but you bring up a really good point about the naming conventions. I really hate them. We talked about this a little bit right before, but yeah, it does make it very hard to find the information that you are looking for. And I lose track all the time about what numbered Vegas event are we up to?
Oh, yeah.
We have 56. Like, I do my best to keep track of them because it's what I'm doing. But man, can't we have some other sort of name? Just come up with weird words for it again. Like when we
go back to the old days.
Like just random words in the dictionary would be kind of fun.
Yeah, but eventually we'll get to like, oh, what other way do we have to describe this fight night card or this fight night headliner other than meh?
Yeah,
because that's where so many of them are these days.
A lot of them are at least at the top, and we're not necessarily, crapping all over the excellent fights that are sometimes on the bottom, or sometimes maybe they're just lacking in excellent fights. Maybe it's a lot of prospect fights, that kind of thing. It's tough because you and I come from a time where we were watching the fights and pretty much top to bottom, all the fights were, featuring and I'm not trying to diss any of the fighters now, but before it was like all, some sort of in the rankings,
there was quality control.
Yeah. Because you didn't have as many of the events. Now there's so many events and so many bodies on the roster. It's like 600, 700 fighters on the roster. Maybe it's less than that, but it's way too many fighters to be able to satisfy the needs of building deep cards every week anymore, especially when you put out 41, 42 a year and you only end up with this being an off weekend that we have here as we record on Memorial Day. It's one of the rare times throughout the calendar year that we're actually going to get no UFC that weekend, because from here on out, from this stretch on, we have 3 months in a row of fights, no weekend breaks.
UFC Vegas 56 Contender Series sequel.
That's
what it feels like. Honestly, it's like, oh, I remember this guy from the Contender Series, or like you just didn't watch it, and it's like you missed like WandaVision before seeing Doctor Strange, and you're like, I'm a little lost here.
No, this is all of them. All of those are now. It's populated very heavily by Contender Series alumni, and a lot of them, to the credit of that property, they have found a lot of really excellent talent that way. It really has been. I think that's I don't even watch Contender Series because I'm really I don't have the time anymore to do any non-UFC product that I don't really have to cover, or get to choose to cover and that kind of thing. If there's a prospect I'm interested in, I'll tune in. But this is my preferred vehicle to getting fighters into the UFC from an entertainment perspective than the Ultimate Fighter. The Ultimate Fighter needs to die, and I'm tired of it. But I do like the Contender Series. I do think it's silly that it's called Dana White's Contender Series, but of course I know why. It's pretty obvious that
we all know why.
We all know why. Yeah, we don't even need to say, but
like the thing is like we were talking about this as while we were getting ready to hit record on the show. I was trying to bring up UFC Vegas 56 on Tapology, and I didn't go to tapology.com, which Scott has told me like just automatically surfaces the upcoming like major promotion fight cards. But I typed in like 6 different permutations of UFC Vegas 56, UFC Fight Night Vegas 56, UFC Fight Night 56, UFC Fight Night Volkov. Finally, UFC Fight Night Rosenstruik was the one that finally got me to the Tapology page for this stupid thing. It kept bringing me to Shogun versus OSP 1 back in 2014. Because that was UFC Vegas or UFC Fight Night 56 originally. This is like how Call of Duty, how they're just doing Modern Warfare again. It's like if I type Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, it's like, all right, am I going to get the one from way back in like 15 years ago, or am I going to get the one that's coming out this October?
It's the same problem I have now with God of War, although at least there's only a couple of those, and they were both fantastic, and I will not besmirch the name of either game.
I always said that I love this game, and I really like the studio, but one of the worst search engine optimization games ever is Control.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It's like Control. Nope, that's not bringing it. Control game. No, that's bringing me to like controllers. And it's like, no, there's just no good way to type. You type like Control Remedy in order to get to it.
Yeah, that definitely didn't get workshopped enough. But I
But it's
tell
a
you,
really good game.
here's another search hack if you're looking for the latest UFC event, and you don't just go, like I said, to Tapology, where they have it right on the main page, blasted in front of your face. If you do want to Google it, just Google UFC and then the last names of the two headliners. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the quickest, easiest way, because
Well,
you're
here's the
never going to
thing.
remember what the event is actually called or what number Vegas event it is, but that's the way to do it. Or if they are going to, let's say, well, actually, I shouldn't even say that. I was going to say, if you're going to UFC like Austin, as they are later in June, you could try to do UFC Austin. But as I have been searching that recently for work, it keeps bringing me back to an event that was there 5 years ago in February. So that
Here's
doesn't
the
work
thing.
either.
I was desperately trying to avoid having to spell Rosenstreich.
Oh yeah, there you go. That's
Volkov is easy, but Volkov has headlined a few fight nights.
But I'll bet you it starts to populate. You get ROZ up in there. UFC ROZ. They know who you mean.
All right. Well, I guess since we're talking about this fight card enough, let's look at the card. We'll start off with some fighting, and then we'll transition, I think, to a pretty gaming heavy episode.
I think it'll be mostly gaming. But yeah, since we had no live fights in the UFC this weekend. Of course, there's fights going on all over the world all the time. But yeah, let's start there.
Let's look at this card here. What do we have? So we got Alexander Volkov versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik at the top, which, I mean, do we want to do the 1 to 10 interest level here?
So I think we had settled officially on a 5-star, half stars are allowed rating system for our show. Is that what we're doing across the board?
Yes, I say
5-star across the board. It's all 6 in one, half dozen in the other, but that's what we're gonna do. So let's settle in. Of a 5-star rating, what do you give this main event in terms of your interest level? That's all we're talking about.
I feel like if this was 2 years ago, out of 5 stars, this might be a 3.5.
Okay.
But both of these fighters have they've been on a streak of not the most exciting fights. Volkov's had a couple of good ones, but Rozenstruik, I feel like since Ngannou murdered him, we haven't seen like a really great Rozenstruik fight. Like, remember, like even the Overeem fight where he deformed Alistair Overeem at the last second. That wasn't that exciting of a fight until the end.
Correct.
But like
there have been worse 5-round. There have been worse, almost entirely 5-round heavyweight fights than that. But it's yeah. Right.
Yeah, but like the ending made it worth it. It was like the firework. It was almost like Volkov versus Derek Lewis, right? Where it's like, all right, well, Volkov like kept control of the entire thing, and
reasonably decent fight, but nothing spectacular. And then
we witnessed a murder at the end of the fight,
and then something got hot and the shorts came off.
Exactly. By the way, that was I don't know if I ever told this story on the show here, but I watched that fight, the Khabib versus McGregor, that card, in the Times Square Buffalo Wild Wings.
Okay.
Because I was staying in Times Square because this was during NYCC, New York Comic Con.
Yeah, okay.
And I was there with my then girlfriend, who was an exhibitor because she was a cosplayer. And so we were like, well, we need to go watch like Khabib McGregor. We can't like not watch that fight. So there was an Irish pub that was like right down the street, like kind of like on the border of Hell's Kitchen. And we're like,
if you know the name of it, I bet you I know exactly where it is because I used to work right around there.
I don't.
Not important
I
enough.
thought
our listeners don't care.
But I went over there. This was like maybe 4 hours before the card started. So I was like, going to get some lunch, maybe it was brunch or something like that. But I was going to get like a late breakfast, early lunch. And I was like, they were just opening up their doors. Basically, I was like, hey, are you guys showing the fight tonight? And they're like, oh yeah, we are. And I was like, is there a cover? And they're like, no, there's no cover. And I'm like, they look confused that I would ask why there's like, if there's a cover. And I was like, cool, we'll see you tonight. We went back there and they're like, oh yeah, there's a cover. It's $40 a person. And I was like, well, we're not going here.
Nope.
So we went to the Buffalo Wild Wings in Times Square, sat all the way in the back corner and sat there for like 8 hours as we like squatted on the spot for like 2 hours before the card started, and then watched the entire card from start to finish. And I remember this girl came in with this guy, like the guy, like she was like so upset she had to be there. Like, I don't want to watch this. And he's like, no, it's a really important fight. Like I really want to see this fight.
She's the meme.
She did not want to be there at all.
She's like that meme of the guy who's explaining everything and she's just sitting there.
No, she didn't. She didn't. Yeah, she did not want to even understand it.
Okay.
But like, I remember like we were in between fights. Like, so like, there's a million breaks in UFC fights. And he was looking at his phone in between breaks. And she's like, oh, you dragged me here. And now you're on your phone. He's like, it's a commercial. And then like, finally, like, what happened in the Nurmagomedov McGregor fight happened. And Khabib loses his damn mind. And I look over at her to see if like she's like reacting at all, and her jaw is just on the ground, and she's like, "This is amazing." And I'm like, "Yes, we got her.
We made a fan." And
she did not want to be there any way, shape, or form.
Craziness of that this sport, these things happen in MMA type of deal.
Yes, but all right. So back to the main event here.
Yeah, what's your rating? Give it the 5-star rating.
3.5 for me.
No.
That was my original one. I'm gonna say 2.5.
And you know what? I'm actually going to go we'll go another star down. I'm going 1.5.
Wow.
And the reason being is because I essentially at this point, I'm punishing heavyweight headliners that aren't for like a title, unless there's something super interesting about it. Because honestly, look at this fight. Tell me that you think this is going to be a fight that's interesting when it plays out. I don't care about the implications. Is this going to entertain you?
I've given it a. You're right. You know what? You are right with your rating here, because I'm looking at it. And I'm like, there's a 35% chance this is an entertaining fight.
That's probably generous, but yeah, I think you're in the ballpark.
I'm just putting it there because Rosenstrike has knockout power, so
Yeah, they're heavyweights, and things can happen, sure.
But 5 rounds of that's the problem, right? Like this could just drag on forever. And honestly, I think if we get to like the end of round 3 and there's no knockout, I think I'm just going to turn the fight off. Honestly, I don't even care at that point, because nothing's going to happen in 4 and 5 probably, unless like we get a repeat of Overeem and Rosenstrike.
Yeah, probably not going to happen.
But I could see that. I could watch the replay of that then. Like I just save myself like 15 minutes and not watch the last 2 rounds and the decision.
I'd go a step further for you. I would say if it doesn't happen in round 1, just go do something else and check back in later. Even do this. Here would be something fun if you were willing to try this. You should set a timer for yourself, like a 15-minute timer after round 1. Just go do something, come back at the timer ends, and just see if the fight's still on.
Maybe. I mean, I you know what? You've convinced me. I'm dropping it down to 2.
There you go.
2 out of 5.
There you go. I think that's fair. Yeah.
All right.
Look, there's some implications here, because at the very least, I think Rosenstrike is not too far removed from like the title picture. There eventually will come a time where there will be more contenders they need to come up. Could he emerge? Maybe he could catch fire enough. I don't think either one of these guys is ever going to wear a belt in the UFC, but there might be something here. I think Volkov is already shown that he's really not UFC championship material. He's not going to get there. So I look at him as a bit of a gatekeeper, I suppose, at this point. So it's just not the most interesting of fights. I don't think Volkov has name value here. I think we recognize the name, but is there value in recognizing the name? I don't know.
I don't know about in a 5-round main event. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and I'm always like, for me, heavyweight fights, again, if it's for title, or if there are 2 high-level competitors that I think are going to produce a very interesting fight, or maybe they just have interesting styles that really ought to make an interesting fight, then I'm interested in a heavyweight fight for 5 minutes. After that, I know I'm in for something bad, and I'm almost always right, and it sucks. So when I see a heavyweight headliner here, the main reason I'm giving it 1.5 stars is because at least these guys are, world-class fighters. They're in the top 10, I think, inarguably anywhere you're looking. So I'll give them that, and I'm interested because of the competitiveness of the sport. But entertainment value, I'm expecting very little out of this. I'm not excited for this fight really at all. So yeah, it's a 1.5 stars out of 5 for me.
Yeah, I think that 1.5 or 2 is the right rating here. Now, what do you think about the rest of the card here? Like, are there any names that are jumping off the page for you, or any fights that are jumping off the page?
I mean, without naming like all the fights, I would just say the one that I think is most interesting to me is Danny Gay against Movsar Evloev in the co-main. These guys should make an interesting fight. I think maybe if you're going to watch these fights, if you're a casual fan, if you're a casual fight fan, maybe you're a gamer who mostly listens, you're mostly a gamer and you listen to our show for games or something like that. And maybe you have some interest in fights. This would be a good fight to watch. I think if you go a little further down, earlier on in the card. Damon Jackson, I think, is interesting against Daniel Argueta coming in here. He's only 8-0. He's prospect still. A lot of these fights are going to be prospect fights, but I think that would be interesting. I like Odie Osborne, the flyweight. He's always fun. Zaruka Dashev is his opponent, although is he ready for the UFC at this point? I don't know. And then actually all the way at the beginning of the card,
that was the one that jumped off for me.
Curtain jerker, very surprisingly placed here. And I don't want to go into the arguments about, this fight should be higher up, because it gets really old to make those arguments and debate all that stuff. But Erin Blanchfield going against AJ Aldrich, they are flyweights. Erin Blanchfield is a very interesting prospect in the flyweight division. JJ Aldrich is one of the more veteran UFC women who's not really emerged as a contender just yet. She's 7-3. That's actually, you don't see a whole lot of women in the UFC with that record still, like a good, impressive record, who hasn't really gotten through to that next level. And that's where she's at. So I'm interested in that fight. You're interested in that fight, you're saying, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that, JJ Aldrich is looking great. And then Erin Blanchfield, I honestly think Blanchfield, like, she could make it to the top of this division. I think anyway.
She could. I don't know. I mean, can she get past Valentina Shevchenko? She's got a lot of developing to do before we even really ask that question.
Of course,
yes. So I won't even entertain.
But the flyweight division
yet.
The flyweight division is desperate for contenders because of the nature of Valentina. So I think within 2 years, if she keeps up at the current trajectory, she could be a title contender.
I hope they don't rush her, because she's still very new to this sport. She only turned pro at 18 4 years ago, or 4.5 years ago. And actually, I had just interviewed her for my my Q&A series for the Post, and I knew she lived around where I live in North Jersey. I knew that she trained in this area and everything too, but I didn't realize that she went to high school in the town that I live in right now.
Oh, wow.
While I was living here, because I'm a transplant. I mean, we came here right before my son was born, my oldest son. And I can almost guarantee that I walked past her as she was coming out of school to go get lunch or whatever they do in town while I'm pushing my kid around in the stroller. I can almost guarantee that happened. So it's kind of funny to be talking to this
small world
young woman now, who I walked past probably when I'm assuming, I don't recognize her or anything, but I'm assuming that I walked past this once a kid, now not only a woman, but a impressive prospect in the UFC. So I'm very interested to follow her progress, knowing that as well.
For sure. So there's 2 other names, I guess 3 other names that jump off that aren't, it's not necessarily the matchup that intrigues me, but I like watching them fight, or I want to watch them fight. And it's Joe Solecki, Karolina Kowalkiewicz, and Alonzo Menefield.
Okay.
Now, maybe I just have a soft spot in my heart for Karolina Kowalkiewicz, because it was just a magical night watching UFC 205, and she got beaten by Joanna that night, and
she put in a spirited effort, though.
But the thing is that she has been on such a skid. She's on a Sam Alvey-esque skid right now.
She's talked a lot about
5 in a row,
health issues and stuff too.
Yeah, and I want her to bounce back. She's beaten Felice Herrig in the past. That's her last win, is Felice Herrig at Khabib versus Iaquinta. I'm looking at her Tapology page right now.
4 years ago, yes. I was there for that one too.
And since then, she's lost to Andrade, lost to Watterson, lost to Grasso. No shame in any of those losses.
All impressive
Yan Xiaonan,
former champions in many cases.
Jessica Penne. Yeah, Yan Xiaonan is also not necessarily a bad loss. Jessica Penne is, I would say, in a different category than the rest of those names.
Jessica Penne is the
fighter.
Former atomweight champion of the world. She is still a former world champion. So I would not sneeze at that name whatsoever. 3 of these 5 women who are during this 5-fight skid have held a number 1 in the world championship belt before.
It's one of those things where it's the record is worse than I think the losing streak actually is, because again, this is top talent that she's fighting. But at the same time, it's how can you lose 6 fights in a row and still be in the UFC if your name's not Sam Alvey and you're 100% Dana White's cheerleader.
I am very surprised that she is still in the UFC, even knowing all those names.
Is this a win or go home for her?
And I don't say that because I'm rooting for her to leave. I wish that she would get better matchmaking. I think this is better matchmaking. So I feel like there's good about this. I hate to look at these as like win or go home, but I think that's really kind of what it is. It's just, you got to look at the writing there on the wall. If she loses another fight here, that comes down to, you go all the way back to, she started her career 9-0 with a win over Rose Namajunas, one of the few victories over Rose that has not been avenged. We know the other one that happened recently.
Yeah.
But since then, I mean, we're talking about she's 2-7. If she goes to 2-8 out of 10 fights, it's really hard to look at her and say, okay, she really ought to be sticking around. And I don't say that to be cruel, because I really do appreciate kind of what she brings to the cage. I think she's actually a talented fighter and better than her record. But, at some point, they're probably going to be looking for results. And I'm sure they would just kind of say, we're not really in the Karolina Kowalkiewicz business anymore. And that would be a shame, but it is what it is. Fight game is kind of cruel.
It is, yeah. But so I'm rooting for her, honestly. Like I'm unabashedly putting my name out there for Karolina Kowalkiewicz, because I want her to pick up a win.
Yeah,
and again, it's against the person that she beat last back again.
It was a split decision too. I don't distinctly remember that fight. There were other fights that night I remember better.
But yeah, I'd like to see her get back on the horse.
Sure.
But so what is your rating for this card overall?
Like the undercard, yeah, underneath the main event.
I'm seeing 14 fights.
It's a lot.
Which immediately docks it in my opinion.
It's too many. and of course, fans can say, "Oh, I'll just tune in whatever I want." I kind of have to watch all these, so it just gets to be a lot when you got to commit yourself to 14 fights in a day. It's a long day. If you cover college football, you cover one college football game, you watch a game for 3.5 hours, and then you do some media after, and then you're done. Fights go on for 6-7 hours.
This starts at 1 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's
Goodness
a lot.
Gracious.
I'm gonna have to. I'll probably I'll probably carve out time in the middle of the day to watch Aaron Blanchfield and JJ Aldrich when it starts. But the rest of them, I might have to just kind of catch later on and then jump back into the main card. Because I will always watch all the fights. But honestly, sometimes unless I need it for work, a lot of them I can just skip and watch later. It's just the nature of covering mixed martial arts for the New York Post, as opposed to MMA Junkie or something very specific to covering literally everything there is about MMA. I have the luxury of dipping in and out when I feel like it or need to, or I'm just unable to. And it really doesn't affect my coverage, fortunately.
And honestly, dude, my weekends are more and more precious every passing month, I feel like, because I've not gotten a whole lot of free weekends. This past weekend I was at a wedding, and then this coming weekend I'll be in LA for work. So it's like, not this coming, but the following weekend I'll be in LA for work. So it's like, man, do I really want to like strap myself down and sit there for 14 fights? I don't think I do.
No, I don't blame you. So yeah, as far as the rating that I would assign to the undercard here, I'm gonna say, I'll say 2.5.
Okay, so you're higher than I am.
I think there's enough fighters of interest for me on here on the whole. Like, I didn't even name everybody. I don't want to name check everything, but there's enough fights here that I am quite interested in, and I think really could deliver. It's just not a whole lot of name value is the real problem.
I'm going 2.
Okay.
And honestly,
so you're consistent 2.
Without Dan Ige there in the co-main, this is probably a 1.5.
Okay. But that's funny because you have a 2 for the headliner and you have a 2 for the main card. And I have a 1.5 for the headliner and a 2.5 for the main card. We average out at 2. This is a 2 out of 5 star fight night from the I was almost going to say my other show. From the Ground and Pound team.
That's what we do here. We give 2 stars out of 5. All right.
That's right.
I think that's all the attention we need to pay to this card.
Well, by the way, real quick, last thing was the fight with Herrig and Kowalkiewicz. Is that your can't miss on the prelims, or is it Ige and Evloev? Oh, not the prelims, but on the undercard.
On the undercard, absolutely Ige and Evloev.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah,
way. Okay.
I just have a curiosity about Herrig versus Kowalkiewicz.
Sure. Got you.
And you're right. I am going to try and catch the Damon Jackson fight as well. And then you're right. Blanchfield versus Aldrich.
I think you have to. I think you owe it to watching a fight like that, because I think it could be interesting. I really want to see how she responds to someone who, you know, is a real veteran there, Erin Blanchfield.
Here's the thing, though, is that's how they get you. They're like, oh yeah, people are going to want to watch this fight, and then we'll put 7 fights that nobody cares about in a row, and it's like, but you'll sit down and you'll be like, oh yeah, I do like Andreas Michailidis.
Yeah,
and it's like, damn it, they got me.
But you know what it is too, like fight fans, like the ones that are gonna watch, like they'll watch literally anything. There are a lot of people who were. What was trending for you on Twitter on Saturday? Let me ask you: was no UFC trending for you on Twitter? Because it was trending for me.
I tried to stay off Twitter as much as possible on Saturday.
That was smart. I
was at a rehearsal dinner, so
but no, okay, that makes sense. But no, one of the things that was trending for, and I know this was for other people too, no UFC. So obviously there was a lot of people talking about the fact that they couldn't watch UFC.
You know what?
They'll take anything. Though they'll take literally anything.
They could have watched the return of Mariusz Pudzianowski,
and I bet
former world's strongest man, killed a man in the ring.
He didn't kill anybody.
Basically, first round knockout over Mikel Martela.
Mikel Martela, I believe that's how it's. I'm not great with my Polish pronunciations as well, but Martela, he's a former champion of KSW. This was under the KSW banner in Poland. Great European promotion out there. They are extremely popular where they are, and they have some really interesting talent there. But yeah, this is actually, like, I don't know how much you know about Pudz, Mr. Brian Shea over there. How much familiar are you with him?
Let me tell you something about Mariusz Pudzianowski.
Mm-hmm.
My dad and I have an inside joke for the past probably 15 years of Mariusz Pudzianowski because of the world's strongest man competition.
Okay, so it predates his MMA career.
Yeah, and I remember, like, we would just always just make jokes about Mariusz Pudzianowski and his based on the world's strongest man thing. And I remember one day I was sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, could you imagine if he ever fought boxing or MMA or anything? And then I Googled and I'm like, oh my God, he had an MMA fight last year. This was several years ago, right after he made his debut, and I had just completely missed it. And I watched it and I'm like, that's it's the same sense that I had when Brock Lesnar made the leap to the UFC. And it was it's like being locked in a cage with a bear. It's how do you even approach that?
It looks that way anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And Brock Lesnar will maul you like a bear, if he gets the opportunity to do a blast double. But Pudzianowski, it's just, if you get hit by one of his punches, fully loaded up, I don't know how you survive.
And
we've seen him knock several heavyweights out.
Sure. And he's never really emerged past kind of this, he can fight kind of stage. That's pretty much about where he got to. And I think for somebody who, my understanding is he did not have much of a martial arts background before he really got into this. I don't think he grew up doing a lot of it or anything. So the fact that he's gotten to this point, I think, does speak to the fact that not only did he take this career seriously, is I think he really did improve as an athlete over time. And look, he had a massive weight advantage over Materla, who he was the champion all the way down at middleweight, if I remember correctly. So middleweight all the way up to heavyweight. This is not exactly, the most impressive thing. But Materla, again, former champion, I think, to do what he did, even you saw the punch, right?
Oh yeah.
It was a very slow motion, as you might expect from someone who's massively muscled like Pudz. And
he's 45 years old.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what? Materla didn't stop it, and it came right up there. This uppercut from down below, nice slow motion uppercut, and dropped him, and that was it. It was, you got to give it to him. It was impressive.
And he's currently ranked number 2 in KSW's heavyweight rankings, apparently.
Let's not go down there.
But I want to see Pudz with a belt around his waist. He's already won 5 world's strongest man competitions. I want him to be an MMA champion as well. Let's go.
I'm not sure actually at the moment who the KSW heavyweight champion is.
Let's see. Let's find out.
Certain. Trying to remember.
Oh, it's Phil DeFries.
Oh, Phil DeFries is definitely going to be Pudz. DeFries is a legit heavyweight talent. He was in the UFC probably too soon, and he kind of washed out, and they moved on from him. But I think realistically, if they brought him over now, he would sink, or he would swim. He wouldn't sink. I don't know how high he'd go, but I think he would belong in the UFC. But hey, he's making a great living over there. I'm sure he's pretty happy. So if he wanted to leave, I'm sure he'd leave. It seems like he's all good there. But yeah, he's not beating Pudz isn't beating him. But this is still,
I want to see it though.
Appreciate it. Yeah, fine. If you want to see it, fine. I know you and your dad can watch it together.
I love the Pujanowski circus.
It is quite a circus.
The Bombardier fight, like, oh my gosh, just like flatlined him.
I feel like KSW probably has the best balance of competitive MMA and freak show MMA out there in the modern world. They get both. It's not, again, I wouldn't put KSW in terms of, top fighters under their roof. I wouldn't put them in the top 5. Maybe they're 6. They might be just outside of there because they do. I mean, a lot of talent from KSW leaves. They go to the UFC, and Jan Blachowicz, former KSW champion. There are a lot of impressive names that come in. Karolina Kowalkiewicz, same thing. A lot of impressive men and women coming out of their fold, but it's still not quite there in the big leagues. But it's still they give you some competitive fights, and they give you some of these fun freak show fights that aren't too crazy. They're just fun.
By the way, Jan Blachowicz trains in the same gym as the Pudz.
Yes.
So that's all we need to say about that. But
I think we're done here.
Let's just real quick, because this is the before we move on to gaming for the rest of the show, the hot topic in MMA right now, coming off of Home Vieira, is open scoring.
Yeah.
You have a podcast devoted to judging.
And I almost name checked it before. Yeah.
Yeah. Name check it. Name check away.
Outside Judges MMA podcast. You should be listening to myself and my partner, Dan Urban, because we know a lot about MMA judging, and we try to keep it. I try to keep it over there rather than, evangelize over here. But once in a while, you've heard me, it comes up.
And in the spirit of keeping it over there, but I think this is a topic worth touching on, but we do want to move on to gaming. Give me your quick take on the idea of implementing open scoring.
Ooh, a quick take is tough, but I will tell you that I'm a proponent of open scoring. And at the heart of it is because I want the fighters to have all the information about their fight. That's really what it comes down to. I don't see it as a judging issue. It will affect judging, but I don't think it affects judging in the way a lot of people really think it will. It's not going to, quote unquote, fix, and I'm using air quotes, judging, because that's not what it's aimed at. All the goal of the people who are really implementing open scoring in the sport, which is the state of Kansas and the state of Colorado, those are the ones who are really officially implementing open scoring. Their goal is to make sure that the fighters know where they stand and then can make adjustments from there. Because look, even if you know all the rules and all the criteria and everything like that, your corner knows it, everything like that, you still really don't know necessarily how the judges ended up scoring a close round. Maybe you could say, oh, it's close, and it could have gone either way. But wouldn't it be better to know if you got it already? Then you can kind of change your strategy from there. Combat sports is a very different thing than traditional stick and ball sports, right? You can't just make the analogies like, well, they know the score in the football game, they know score in the baseball game. I see that one all the time. It's not a helpful analogy. But the one thing that's different about combat sports as opposed to, let's say, baseball is the danger factor involved. Like if you're fighting and you're up 2 rounds to none, but they were both close rounds and you don't really know that, why should you have to put yourself in a position where I might get my head knocked off because of entertainment value? There's not enough money in the sport for that. That's kind of where I look at it. Is I feel really bad that the fighters don't have the information. They don't even get a whole lot of money for it. They have to win to get half of their money.
That's
just
the thing
give
right
them
there.
That information. That's where I stand.
I think we either have to give it a shot or restructure the way these contracts work, because there's so much left in the hands of the judges. And if you don't know where the judges stand going into that final round, it's all right, well, it's just such a weird calculus these fighters have to make while they're also stopping kicks and punches and knees being thrown at their faces.
Do you know the meme about the worst guy just made a great point? Yeah. Dominic Cruz did that last week because he went
I don't know
on
if he's the worst guy.
He's not the worst guy, but he's the worst guy with judging, I would say.
Okay.
He's really one of the worst because he spreads so much misinformation on a UFC broadcast that he actually hurts the entire global understanding of how MMA scoring works. He really is the worst guy in that. He's not a bad person, but he's the worst in that one aspect. And
I still want to see him fight Hans Molenkamp.
Fine. You know what? Let him have it. I hope he beats the crap out of Hans Molenkamp. I really don't care. But I've spoken to him before. He's about everything that you see on TV, I think. But Dom, he brought up the point on the MMA Hour about how, these judges, they don't know what's going on. They've never been leg kicked before. They don't know what a calf kick feels like. They really don't understand this kind of thing. And it's like, okay, whatever. You're just saying all this stuff. And then all of a sudden he transitions into this whole like little side point about flat fees in MMA being what they ought to be paying instead of getting win bonuses and things like that. And I'm like, hold on a sec. You went from saying all this stupid stuff to like something that actually makes total sense. Thank you. Please say it from the top of a mountain, but just don't say the other stuff.
Yeah. So my opinion, because I've seen a lot of arguments lately saying that like, oh, well, it's going to influence judging then as well if there's open scoring, because the other judges will see what the other, like one judge will see what the other judges said and like, oh, I was the only one that scored that round for so-and-so.
The California commissioner brought that up, Andy Foster. Yeah.
Here's how you fix that. You don't put it up on the Jumbotron. You put it on a little iPad and you don't show the other judges what the other judges scored. And you just give it to the coaches, give it to each corner and say, hey, if you want to show it to your fighter, cool. If not, keep it to yourself. And then they bring it back. So that way it's.
Do you watch Invicta, sir?
I do not.
Because that is exactly what happens during Invicta broadcasts when they fight in Kansas. The Kansas Commission runs it exactly the way you described. They show it on a little tablet. They put it into a Google Doc, or a Google sheet or what have you. They just show it on there. The corner sees it, they acknowledge it, and then they move on. It's not on the in-arena broadcast. They will put it up on the broadcast feed that we have, but the closed circuit in-arena situation, no one sees that in the arena. So
which is a smart way to do it.
It seems to be working very well in Kansas. And, I think you still need a lot more time and a lot more fights and a lot more experiences with that to really say it's success. It works. But I haven't seen anything in the 2 years they've been doing it there that has said to me, oh, this can't work. There's no way this can work. They've had technical glitches here and there too. And those are concerning, but I think once you can get things like that ironed out, because we're still in essentially beta testing phase of that as well, I think you can get to the point where it really does work.
Yeah, it's because like it sucks for the fighters to not know the score going into the final round, right? And like, I don't know, I would like to see them try it. And I saw an article that like I guess Andy Foster also said like he's not in favor of it, but he wouldn't be like opposed to trying it out.
That was what he said on MMA Hour. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, like give it a shot. Like that's the first step. Is you got to give it a shot somewhere low stakes, like an amateur fight. And then if that works out nicely, then, you bring it up to some other, like maybe smaller promotions. And then eventually, if the UFC ever decides it wants to try anything different, then which, it's like once a decade, then we get it in the UFC. But I don't think it's going to happen. And
the thing with Kansas is in the way they implement open scoring is it is entirely up to first the promotion, because it's optional. You don't have to do it because you're in Kansas. Invicta says, yes, we want to use it, or no, we don't want to use it. UFC could go to Kansas and say, no, we're not using it. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's first level. Second level, do each fighter and corner want to have that? They still have the option. So if the UFC says, yeah, we're going to try open scoring in Kansas this time, and then Karolina Kowalkiewicz is fighting there, and she's like, I don't want open scoring for my fight. I don't want to see it. She doesn't have to see it, but her opponent can. It's okay to have that. There are ways to do that. You can also opt to have just the round score, or you can have the overall score,
the running tally,
both, or whatever. They'll do whatever you want is the thing. So it's very custom fit, and it's so low tech. You just need a couple tablets and a Google account, and your commission can then implement that. If your commission can't afford those things, I don't know how you're putting on shows.
I mean, that's like what, $400
Is it that?
per corner?
I'm pretty sure you get cheaper tablets than that.
Yeah. Get like some of those Kindle Fires that are always on like Prime Day deals.
Yeah, just buy some refurbished deals, right? Like I got 2 tablets for my kids that were both under $100. They could easily do this. You know, you can even have the little child protective cases on them.
And that's what you got to do, because
that's what my kids have.
If they say, "Oh, I don't like that round," you know, you might get some fighters slamming the tablet into the ground.
But they can't reach it because on the other side of the cage.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Genius. Everything about it, honestly, it's done very elegantly. I think it's done really well. I would encourage you, sir, the next time there's an Invicta card, they're usually on Wednesday nights. I would encourage you to check it out just so you can experience what open scoring really looks like.
I will. I mean, I'd love to. I've watched a couple of Invicta cards like back in the day. I remember like
they used to have all the women's talent. Now the UFC's kind of poached a lot of it.
UFC really has taken a lot of it.
And Bellator to a degree too.
Speaking of tablets, as we segue over into our gaming portion, I've been playing a lot of mobile games lately because I've been traveling. This past week, I traveled to Florida for work. You'll be able to see the stuff that I saw this coming week on GameInformer.com. But as such, oh my God. So first of all, I was like, I'm going to do some writing on the plane. So I brought my laptop, and so I popped it open, and you know, I'm writing, and this guy just taps me on the shoulder, and he's like, "Hey, are you making a game?" And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Your screen, are you making a game?" And I was planning my podcast, my Nintendo podcast that I do.
Nice.
And I was like, "No, I'm planning a show." And he's like, "Oh, I was looking at your screen, and I thought you were making a video game." And I was like, "Well, that's that. I'm not doing this anymore." So I just closed it and put my laptop away. I'm like, what a freaking weirdo.
I mean, you know what? You're sitting there, you're bored. I guess it's not the worst of most offensive thing you could do on a plane.
No, don't look at somebody else's
feet.
Don't look at somebody else's screen, and not only that, don't look at somebody else's screen and also let them know that you were reading what was on their screen.
Yeah.
Like, I understand, like, every
true.
once in a while somebody will be watching something on an iPad, and I'll glance over at it and see what they're watching. But like, I'm not like, "Oh yeah, I really like this movie." Like, no, don't do that. That's like anti-plane etiquette.
You hear all the horror stories about people sitting next to other people who are watching porn, right? And
I have not heard that horror
terrible
story.
stuff. You never heard that? Oh, I've heard of people doing that.
I mean, I always honestly, I'll put on the movies, like, because I fly Delta a lot, so they got like the TV in the back of the headrest, and I'll put on a movie and I'll forget. Like I was like, there's like really weird like visual scenes. Like I put on Dodgeball one time. I was like, I haven't watched Dodgeball in years. And there's some weird like scenes in that like if somebody hasn't seen the movie and they just look over at my screen, they're probably like, "What the hell is this guy watching?"
Well, if you're watching it on Delta's TV, then it's on Delta.
Yeah, but like there are, I mean, the guy next to me, the same guy, he was watching House of Gucci, and I just happened to glance over, and it was like, I'm not going to say the characters, but there was a semi-graphic sex scene happening on his screen. I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's something I didn't expect to like look over like towards the aisle and see." But anyway, as such, I was not able to do a whole lot of work on the plane. So instead, I played some mobile games. I'm always playing Marvel Strike Force, and unfortunately, you need an internet connection for that. So I was not playing that on the plane. But I did play Sonic Dash Plus, which is the Apple Arcade version of an Endless Runner starring Sonic that has been out. I think the Endless Runner has been out since 2013, but they finally put an Apple Arcade version out that doesn't have any ads, no microtransactions, no required internet connection. And it's just like, it gives you missions kind of like Jetpack Joyride did back in the day. And it tells you like, "Hey, go complete these missions out in the world. Like, oh, destroy 25 enemies while you're playing through like these levels, to collect 100 rings." And then it gives you points towards unlocking like different parts of, like, you build up the worlds and everything. And then you can unlock new characters, power up your characters, give them new abilities and everything. I'm having a good time with that. It's not something I'm going to be like, "Oh my God, I got to go play Sonic Dash Plus. I can't wait till this episode recording is over because I got to go play Sonic Dash Plus." But it's a good way to kill some time on a flight.
Sure.
And like, you know, if I'm bored waiting, like last night I was waiting around trying to get out of the wedding venue, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna just fire up Sonic Dash Plus while I wait for the people that I'm giving a ride to kind of get their act together. But Mini Motorways, I talked about this last week. That is another one that I'm still playing a little bit of. I actually prefer it on the Switch, even though it was designed with PC and mobile in mind. I think it controls better with a controller, which is weird because it's a cursor game. So like you're controlling a cursor around,
Right.
placing roads and everything. And I was like, oh well, this is going to be better on touchscreen. And then before I wrote my review, I played a little bit on the Switch touchscreen. I'm like, that's a little wonky. Like you have to like tap to zoom in and enter building mode and then draw, and then you have to like tap to zoom out, and like it's not as intuitive, which is weird because you would think it'd be super intuitive because that's how Mini Metro was. Mini Metro was very intuitive with the touchscreen, but I think they learned a lot of lessons with like how unintuitive it was bringing it over to the controller. So I think they may have compromised a little bit there. But what are you playing?
I am still playing Cyberpunk 2077. I've moved a little more forward in the story. I've been so busy. I had a lot of interviews in the last week, so I did not get to play as much as I would have liked to. Hopefully I'll get to play a little more this week. But I'm starting to experience what the game is like more. And I don't think this is too deep a spoiler, but as Johnny Silverhand's presence is more, I guess, a part of the story. It's starting to change the way I experience the game based on the way it was in Act 1 compared to Act 2. And it's definitely getting a little more interesting from there. I don't know. The one thing, though, that keeps kind of going through my head as I'm playing through this particular game is it's not gripping me like the way that I really thought it would this whole game. I really thought that I would get, very kind of hooked on it. Like when I played Death Stranding, like I kept wanting to play Death Stranding. I was like, I really want to go back to Death Stranding. And mostly because of weird stuff. Like I wanted to build the road and stuff like that because I'm weird. It wasn't so much about killing BTs and delivering packages. It was just like kind of the weird infrastructure of the game that I like to build. But this game, nothing about it has gripped me in like, man, I got to go play it. I got to go play it. I got to go play it. Maybe I need to get a little deeper into the story because it is starting to get more intriguing, I guess. But I don't know. I've heard good things, at least about that part. The other thing that bothers me, sir, is I am still seeing glitches in this game that ostensibly was fixed. Now, there's no game-breaking glitches. You described to me one time where you were hiding behind cover and you still got hit. That's not happening in my experience yet.
Well, I would hope not.
Yeah. But like I was having a conversation with a key character in a cafe. We were sitting in a diner, I guess, in a little booth. And all of a sudden, as he's sitting there in front of me talking, he just kind of pops out of his seat, like immediately. He's standing, and then he's back to sitting again. And it's like, why can't we fix
it's really
that?
Entertaining conversation.
I know it's such a small thing, but the game's a year and a half old. You say you fixed it. This is the type of thing that in a AAA game is fixed a year and a half later.
Yeah.
And it's not. And it's disturbing because the rest of the game does look very, very, very sleek, very nice. This is the type of thing that I feel
you're
like
playing on PS5?
Yeah, I'm playing on PS5. I'm playing with the latest version and everything. It's all up to date. And this is the type of thing that I feel like you would see in the Fallout game. We both love the Fallout games, right? But when they release those Fallout games, there's always these glitches and all this other stuff. And it's like, okay, they'll get to it. We're fixing it. We'll work on it. It's a massive world.
Skyrim was basically unplayable on PS3 for like the first several months.
Yeah, exactly. It's we don't like to see it, but like ultimately, they were able to get through that. But like this is a game that looks even prettier. I mean, it looks way better than any of those worlds ever looked. And it still has these janky glitches and stuff. It's like, come on, get on this. And it really takes the immersion out of it, which is, I think, the best part of the game is just how immersive the experience can be. So be taken out of it, you're just handicapping its biggest strength, I think.
And it's such a bummer because I want to go back and play this game the way the developers originally envisioned it. Because I played it at launch on an Xbox Series X. And, there were a lot of problems as I detailed, but I was like, I see the potential here. If they can just get this like glitch crap under control, it could be a really good game. I don't like the way it ended personally. However, I could see the rest of that game like being like one of my favorite games of that year if they just got all this stuff under control. And it's such a bummer to hear that a year and a half later, it still isn't fixed. Or, I mean, a lot of the stuff still isn't fixed, even as the game maybe looks better or plays better or whatever, has new stuff. But like, God, so much potential in that game. And I've been waiting for like an excuse to jump back in because like nothing has really been gripping me on the console front. So not to be too much of a bummer, but I was checking out a game called Sniper Elite 5 that just came out. and just the news. I started playing it. It's one of those games. It's known for the X-ray cam,
Yes.
where like you shoot somebody, and like if you get like a really good shot off, it'll do slow motion, and you can watch like the havoc that the bullet is wreaking on the body. And it's like, yeah, like that's cool under normal circumstances, I guess, like for a game, but like I don't know. I don't want that imagery in my head right now after like the Uvalde shooting and everything. Like,
Yeah, it's
hard to do that.
I've had a
Honestly.
lot of conflicted thoughts in my head just like since then about like how much do I even want to engage with like shooters and guns in video games and stuff like that. And I know it's number one a game, and this is by far not the first or second or third or 10th or 100th school shooting that we've had in our lifetimes, but it's for whatever reason now. Maybe I'm getting older. Maybe it's that my kids are in school now, that was an experience the next day. Just having to say goodbye to your kids again. Just,
Oh, I bet.
you know nothing's gonna happen. Like you do, but do you? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's just that little bit of doubt that gets put in your head again. And but yeah, it's just like how much do I really want to run around shooting people and things and stuff, even in a video game? Like, is that the fantasy that I want to live? I don't know. I ended up still playing Cyberpunk, but you know what? When I was playing this week, I did a mission that involved no shooting. I don't think I fired my gun one time, and I definitely didn't take me out of the experience just doing that. I do like games, I will say, more that are less about like running around and carnage and shooting and stuff, because I'm when I play online like Call of Duty or whatever, I'm not the best. I'm just not. I don't have a good KD rate. I'm never going to be the high score and that kind of thing. So for me, I would rather play a game like, if I'm going to play a violent game, right, I would like to play Hitman, where I'm trying to get in there and I'm trying to kind of manipulate the environment and just slowly, methodically work my way around, do what I need to do. So that's kind of the way I like to engage with a lot of even action games.
Yeah, and I'm not one of the people who's like, yo, this is all to blame on violent video games.
It's not
that argument right into the ground. It's
cyber games, I believe was the term, right? That was being said.
But like, it's just like the imagery that like is kind of like, I don't really want to like see this right now. Like, I'll come back to this in a few weeks. Like, maybe I'll be feeling better about it. But like, yeah, that was like the console game that I was like, oh, like I'll play this, and it's just it's been a little rough to like get over that kind of hump with that.
We know the games are just a scapegoat, though. That's really what it is. At the heart of it, that even me having the conflicts I have, it's just a scapegoat is all it is. It's doors. It's whatever is the reason. It's we know what it is. We know what the reason is.
Yeah.
The reason is because of the fucking guns. It's the fucking assault rifles, the AR-15s. I don't want them anymore. I want them out of here. I want them gone. Whatever it takes to get them out of here, fine. I'm not anti-Second Amendment. My neighbor has guns and he's a hunter. He has them for hunting. He's probably got pistols and things like that. But he seems at least like a normal, reasonable gun owner who just wants them for the purposes he has them, which is either to protect his home or to go hunting. And I'm sure that all gun owners could feel pretty, not all, there's probably some that are going to be really, really mad about their assault rifles either being taken away, which wouldn't happen. You can't take them. That would be hard, but you can stop selling them. So a kid turns 18 and goes and buys them at 1,600 rounds and then unloads them onto kids, tells them they're all going to die, and tells a teacher good night, all this awful stuff. I mean, if we can at least limit access to that particular weapon, I feel like we're saving some lives.
For sure. And like, I agree with you 100% with that. But like, let's transition to something to be actually exciting about.
Yeah. You know what? I think you're right. This can be an escape, but I had to get that off my chest.
No, for sure. And, definitely a message that I think, hopefully our audience agrees with as well.
And
but
you certainly seem to.
I definitely do. Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't we move on to something that really doesn't involve, ballistics? How about like the Star Wars Jedi Survivor trailer?
Yeah.
That dropped, or I guess it's more of a teaser, right?
Yeah, it wasn't really a trailer, no in-game footage, but how much of Jedi Fallen Order did you play, and when was this?
I played the whole thing a few months after it came out. I liked it, but I didn't love it. I think, I don't know. I think the story just wasn't as gripping as you kind of want it to be. And I feel like that almost fits with like most Star Wars like game content outside of, let's say, Knights of the Old Republic, which is transcendent. But yeah, everything else, it's either kind of like, I would say this is on the high end. I think this is on the high end as far as the story and interest and that kind of thing. But it just, I don't know. And then you're playing the game, and it's a lot of like samey enemies that you're killing, and it's yeah. It just,
well, I mean, how many stormtroopers can you fight?
Or even when you go on, oh goodness, what's the name of the planet that Darth Maul is from? You know what I mean? It's one of those planets in the game where they have the race of people with the horns on their heads like Darth Maul does. It's escaping me, but anyway, when you get to that planet, it's the same thing. They're not stormtroopers.
Dathomir.
Thank you, Dathomir.
I was gonna say Doramir, and I was like, I know that's not right. But
no, that sounds like somebody from Lord of the Rings. Boromir. Boromir's from Lord of the Rings.
Boromir.
Yeah, I'm not a Lord of the Rings guy, but that actually called me. But no, it's on that planet. That's mostly what you're killing too. It's a lot of that. Like it just
the map design is also a problem.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just a lot of there were issues I had with the game that kept me from like really loving it, but I enjoyed it enough. It was fine.
That's one of those games where I just like Assassin's Creed 1, just like Mass Effect 1, which is controversial to say. And just like Uncharted 1, where I go, the sequel to that game is going to kick ass.
Okay.
And I really hope it is, because there's so much good in Jedi Fallen Order. And I think that there's a lot of fat that could be trimmed off. And I'm excited to see what they do. I'm excited to see how they refine the experience and make that a better game, because it could kick all kinds of ass. It's already a very good game. Like, I want to replay it just watching that trailer, and also currently watching Obi-Wan Kenobi on Disney Plus. Like,
I did too. I also watched the premiere.
Dude, it's taking place during that same time period. My bold prediction is we're going to see Cal Kestis in Obi-Wan Kenobi.
That's a very bold prediction. I don't think I'm going to walk down that road with you, but hey, if it did, that'd be impressive.
That is my bold prediction. But yeah, that game's coming out in 2023, so we don't have that long to wait.
Oh, ostensibly 2023. We'll say.
Yeah. And I mean, EA, I think coming off of Battlefield 2042, I think is more willing to delay games at this point. Like, Good. That game was just a disastrous launch. Let me see 2042 is still getting patches and weapon changes and everything, because like, it's just like, and they're just now saying like, oh, we put out this new hazard zone mode, and now we're winding down support for it because nobody's playing. It's like, God, like that game, everybody was so excited for it. Oh, and before we get off Jedi Fallen Order, I'm not going to spoil it, but at the end, near the end of that game, you get maybe one of the greatest moments in video game history.
Why am I not remembering it now? Many things have happened in the last 3 years.
Yes. It is just a sequence that has stuck with me ever since, and I'm not going to spoil it. But
it obviously didn't stick with me, but I will.
Clearly,
I'm going to. If you were into it more than me, but I'm probably gonna look up the video of it right after this and just make sure what you're talking about.
So let's run down. We're right on the precipice of June.
Mm-hmm.
June is traditionally E3. No E3 this year. However, there is Summer Game Fest. All the developers are still holding all of their major news for all these streaming events.
Stuff, from Sony.
So, we're getting our first taste of that this week with the PlayStation State of Play. This is probably going to be their big one for the year, right? Like, this is the equivalent of their E3 stream.
Okay.
Coming June 2nd, so this Thursday. So let me just run down the calendar here of what we have so far, okay? Mm-hmm. So June 2nd, State of Play for PlayStation. June 8th, Guerrilla Collective is doing a Black Voices in Gaming stream, which is highlighting Black game creators and their works. June 9th, we have the Upload VR Showcase, which is just a bunch of VR titles. That same day, June 9th, we have Summer Game Fest, which is like the flagship, like third-party like stream hosted by Jeff Keighley of the Game Awards fame. But yeah, and you can actually go to an IMAX theater and watch that. Like they have a partnership with IMAX, which is funny because I think Jeff Keighley's dad was the founder of IMAX, or like he was influential in like the creation of IMAX. So that makes sense. Actually,
how coincidental.
But yeah, like so you can expect AAA reveals, trailers, and other surprises. But it also looks like you can go to an IMAX theater near you. June 10th, we have IGN's Summer of Gaming stream, which usually has some pretty good announcements as well as Netflix Geeked, which is usually their, like, it looks like we're maybe getting Cyberpunk Edge Runners and Resident Evil news out of that, as far as like Netflix shows. Tribeca Games Spotlight, June 11th, we've got the Guerrilla Collective, which is a bunch of indie games. Wholesome Games Direct, which is always just like cute little games that aren't violent, if that's what you're looking for, Scott.
I like violent games. I just, God of War. At this point, give me more stuff where I can just bash in beasties as opposed to shoot up people. That's where I'm at. My headspace right now.
IGN's Summer of Gaming, which is it's a Future of Play Direct, which is, I guess, updates on indie titles and other projects. Future Game Show. And then June 12th is the Xbox and Bethesda showcase. So I know you've probably got a little bit of interest there with, I know you don't have an Xbox, but Starfield is probably going to be there, I would imagine. Other Bethesda titles. I know you're a Bethesda guy, even if they now are owned by Xbox.
Well, let me ask you this. Obviously, we've got a lot of stuff, right? But like, which of those things do you think our listeners should be the most interested in? Like maybe like 2 or 3 of the most interesting ones, as far as like the game reveals and that kind of thing.
The biggest ones are going to be the PlayStation State of Play, Summer Game Fest, and the Xbox and Bethesda showcase. Those are the 3 that, as of now, like if you're just talking purely big game reveals, like you're looking for like the E3 style earth-shattering announcements, those are going to be the ones where we're going to get like probably new looks at God of War Ragnarok, probably new looks at Starfield, probably new looks at Jeff Keighley is heavily hinting that the Callisto Protocol, which is the Dead Space inspired game by the Dead Space creator that is on the cover of this month's Game Informer, that I saw several gameplay sequences of myself and talked to the developers of. But like Jeff Keighley hopped in my mentions basically to like do like the eyes emoji after Glenn Schofield, the creator, said like, hey, we might have more news to come. So that kind of tells me that they might have something there. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. But Jeff always gets really great reveals. If we're going to get it, I mean, we saw Norman Reedus spill the beans a little bit that we're getting a Death Stranding 2. Jeff Keighley is a big, great friend of Hideo Kojima. Okay. I would not be surprised if it's, anywhere near ready to show, if we get a little bit of a teaser at least,
So let's ask you this. Out of those 3 that you named, why don't you give me bold predictions for each one? Because you're more plugged in than me. I don't even know if I could make a good prediction, but you, sir, I think you could.
Bold predictions are tough on this time of year, just because it could be literally anything.
How about like a mildly, I think, bold, or what's a good word for that? Like I don't know.
Mild prediction.
How about a mild prediction for you?
Well, I mean, I think the easy one for State of Play is we're going to get God of War gameplay. We're going to get God of War release date. That's the easy one, right?
That would be delightful. A release date would be good because I know they'll stick to it.
Hopefully.
I don't think Sony likes to put those out there unless they're pretty sure that it's going to come. They've been pretty good about that.
So I'm seeing a lot of leaks. Here's another thing that I think a lot of people might not know about. There's been rumors for a long time that Naughty Dog, the developer behind The Last of Us and Uncharted, is going to reveal a full-on PS5 remake of the first Last of Us game, using The Last of Us 2's kind of like visuals and engine and everything. And I don't know if that needs to be remade just yet. I think, what was that, 2013?
It wasn't that long ago. Yeah, this is the first thing that popped in my head when you said that. I'm like, why? I'm just asking myself why.
They already remastered it for PS4. Like that was one of like the last big games to come out on PS3, and they remastered it for PS4, and it looked great. And like, I don't know, I'd rather them work on something else. But I also, honestly, if you really want a bold take, I think they're going to say, hey, we're like making a Last of Us 1 remake, but also we've got like either Uncharted 5 or Uncharted something, like some sort of continuation of the Uncharted franchise.
I would be more interested. Like I don't want them to just go back to the old properties like that. But if they're going to go back and remake one of those games, go back and remake Uncharted 1 and maybe like do something more special with that one. Because that's a game that you kind of you go back to as more like a, what is it, like a proof of formula, that kind of thing. And then they ended up expanding upon it in Uncharted 2. What if they went back to the first one and they really enhanced it and they made it like with everything they've learned in the last 15 years or so since that game came out, and they were able to produce a AAA 2022 PS5 game with those sort of sensibilities, maybe even take some twists on the story just a little bit, or expand upon things. I don't know. That would be interesting to me if they did that. And I don't want them to do that, but if they're going to do one of those two franchises, that's my pick.
Yeah, I would agree with you, like 100%, because Uncharted 1, I think of all the Uncharted games that Naughty Dog has made, I'm not going to count Golden Abyss on Vita, but like Uncharted 1, Uncharted 2, 3, 4, Lost Legacy, and then Last of Us 1 and 2. Uncharted 1 is the only one I would call not a great game. And I think that if they could figure it out, though, because it's integral to the story. Like, if you want to understand fully the relationships between the characters in the later games, like Uncharted 1 is important. But you could also just, I recommend people, if they're like, hey, I want to check out the Uncharted series, what's the series all about? I'll typically just be like, watch like a recap on YouTube of what Uncharted 1 does, and then jump right into Uncharted 2, because that's when the series becomes great. Before, it was just, oh, this is a pretty game, and repetitive level design and frustrating level design sometimes. Uncharted 2 is just, on the whole, a great game.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I think I would have to go revisit that game. I actually do kind of want to go back and play all those games, because I did get the Nathan Drake collection at some point. So yeah, I'll probably go back and revisit it. It's always like, when am I going to do it though? With all the other games in my back catalog, I'm like, when am I ever going to do this?
Let me get a bold prediction from you in a very specific way.
Okay.
This is going to be the first glimpse that we get of PlayStation VR 2, which is going to signal kind of a renewed commitment from Sony to virtual reality. So, they were all in on VR back in like 2015, 2016, when they were like really revving up the hype engines.
I got to preview that actually at a Sony event in the city before it came out. So I was playing, there was that one game, it's like a VR shooter. You start shooting spiders in space on some desert planet or something. I can't remember.
Oh, interesting. I don't remember that one.
Yeah, I don't remember, but it was like a test case for like actually playing like a shooter game. And I thought that was kind of cool, but it was early still.
So I actually wrote the Game Informer cover story portion because we did a year of VR, which, we had Oculus, we had Vive, we had PlayStation VR, and we had like an other like applications, like, hey, like maybe hospitals could use this to help train doctors or something like that, like other potential cases of like the future of VR. And I wrote that part, and I wrote the PSVR part. So I was pretty familiar with PlayStation VR back in the day. And like, I was interviewing executives at Sony, and they were like, oh, I was like, well, how is this different from like 3D TVs? Because like PlayStation seemed to be all in on 3D TVs, and then they just kind of fell off, and it was like, oh, well, that was a failed technology that nobody really embraced.
That was always a gimmick.
And I asked like one of like the executives at PlayStation, I was like, hey, what's the difference between you saying you're all in on this and you're all in on VR? And they go,
that's a good question.
Well, VR is our initiative. 3D TVs was our parent company, Sony's initiative. Like, PlayStation is the one that's pushing VR. Sony was the one pushing 3D TVs because they wanted to sell more TVs, and they wanted to use the gaming division to do that. And I was surprised that he was that candid about that. But like, he was like, yeah, we're all in. And it's like, the fact that they're putting out a PSVR 2 tells me that. Like, I have a PSVR 1. Like, the last game I played on it was Iron Man VR, which perfectly fine. Like, I'm a huge Iron Man fan, and there were some really cool moments in that game, but overall it got lost in like the limited technology, right? So I'm excited to see what PlayStation VR 2 can do, especially like leveraging the power of PS5. All of this to say, Scott, I want your bold take. What PlayStation studio, AAA studio, is going to announce it is working on a PlayStation VR 2 game?
What AAA studio?
So is it going to be Insomniac? Is it going to be Naughty Dog going to announce like an Uncharted VR game? What AAA PlayStation studio do you foresee making a VR game to support the launch of PlayStation VR 2?
It would be cheating to say something like Electronic Arts, which has a bunch of studios, or
I'm saying like internal, studio, like, because PlayStation's going to want to tap studios that it owns, the ones under its umbrella, because those are the ones that are going to produce the content that they want to leverage.
You know what? We'll go with Guerrilla.
Okay.
I don't know why. I could see them making something interesting, maybe in like the Horizon Zero Dawn space.
Oh, I could see that. Like have the two PlayStation Move controllers pulling back like a bow and arrow.
Yeah, why not?
I could see that.
I mean, it'd be a
just put out-
challenge. It'd be a real challenge, but I don't know. You want a bold prediction? There's your bold.
All right, so that's the PlayStation thing. Summer Game Fest. God, I don't like. That could literally be anything. I don't know what we could possibly get out of that. That like because it's so wide. It's just like it could be anything that's not PlayStation first party or Xbox first party, right? Unless like Xbox first party is just saying, hey, here's a glimpse at this game. Tune in for our showcase to see the full trailer. Like they'll do that sometimes. I don't have any bold predictions for that just because it could be anything. I mean, I guess Death Stranding 2 is like a bold prediction there because like, or maybe we get the Silent Hill games that have been hinted at.
That's probably more bold.
Okay. We'll say Silent Hill. That's my bold prediction for that. Okay. And then jumping into the Xbox, I think we get, God,
Gears of War 8.
No. Although maybe, who knows? Like the collective, or not the collective, the what are they? The Coalition. That's their
Coalition.
The Coalition is the Gears of War developer.
What a name! Sounds like a bad guy entity in a game.
They have been quiet for a while, so maybe we get a Gears thing. But I think that we're going to see the Initiatives game, which I think they're working on. What are they?
The Initiatives.
They're working on Perfect Dark, I think.
Oh, right. Yes, we've talked about Perfect Dark a little bit.
Yeah, the company's working on a new installment in the Perfect Dark series. Do you think we get a look at that?
That would be interesting. I would definitely be interested in that.
I mean, that was revealed December 2020 that they were working on that. This is like
been a while.
This is basically Xbox's like ace in the hole. Like their whole criticism against them was they don't have any exclusive games. So Xbox went on a spending spree, bought all these companies. You know, they acquired Activision Blizzard. They acquired Bethesda. They acquired all these other studios.
Activision Blizzard sounds like it's still not a done deal, though.
It's not a done deal, but
that one's a little more complicated.
They stated their intent to acquire these companies, but their big thing was they founded this company called The Initiative, full of industry veterans out in Santa Monica, California, and they've been so secretive. It's founded in 2018. They've been so secretive about what they were working on, and at the end of 2020, they said they're working on a new Perfect Dark game. Which is weird because Xbox also owns Rare, which was the original developer of Perfect Dark. And it's like, well, but anyway,
but all those people are gone. Like the Rare people, that
a lot
made
of them
game,
are.
it's turned over.
A lot of them are. Some of them are still around.
I'm sure there's a few, but most of the key team is moved on.
But however, the Initiative is working on a new Perfect Dark game. It was announced at the end of 2020, or it was revealed at the end of 2020. I don't know if it was officially announced. I think it was leaked or something, or reported. I think that's getting us to around the time where we at least get a teaser trailer to close out the Xbox showcase.
Okay.
That's my bold prediction on that.
I like that. I like these predictions you've been given. I think this was solid.
And then the last one that we didn't cover, by the way, the PC gaming show is also that same day, June 12th, as the Xbox and Bethesda showcase.
And the PC Master Race will celebrate.
Maybe. Who knows? It's been a little low
maybe they'll review bomb on Steam or something. I don't know.
Something will happen, I'm sure.
Something good or terrible will happen.
So what else do we have to talk about here? Mario Strikers Battle League. We'll talk about that next week.
Yes,
in the lead up to the launch there.
Yeah, I think we could wait a week because that'll be a lot of people are talking about that game though. Like I talked to even just people I talked to in the out in the wild, not on the internet. There's people that are like, oh, that soccer game, that Mario soccer game sounds cool. I was like, yeah,
it's been 15 years.
Yeah,
15 years since we've gotten the last entry in the series. So people are excited about that. We'll talk about that next week.
Here's a question I have for you, because you're Mr. All Things Nintendo. Tell me, because of all the sports crossovers that Mario has had, is there a Mario basketball?
There was Mario
I don't know.
3-on-3, I think.
Was it? It sounds awesome. I mean, it probably wasn't because people talk about it, but yeah, I'm curious now because we talk about all these other different things Mario does.
So it's on Nintendo DS. I actually never played this, but Mario Hoops 3-on-3, developed by Square Enix.
Oh, that's an unusual team up there.
2006. There was another Mario basketball game. I feel like it didn't review super well.
I'm sure because people would, like I said, people would absolutely talk about it.
We've gotten almost every other. Let's see.
Has there been a Mario football game like American football?
No, there's not been.
Yeah.
But yeah,
probably too violent. What about Mario fighting? Have we had Mario like, and I don't mean, Super Smash Bros. I mean, like, what about Mario mixed martial arts?
Well, there was I think Mario Judo or Mario Karate in the
What?
or in the Sonic Mario and Sonic Olympics 2020.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
that's honestly a super fun game too. Like it's a good compilation for multiplayer. Like I think you and your kids would have fun with it if they have any interest in like just little fun sports based mini games. Like there's
They would have fun watching
skateboarding.
me play. They're still not able to play very well, but they like watching me play.
They're pretty basic too, and they're designed for like family gameplay in
Yeah.
mind. So like I don't know, maybe it's worth checking out for you. Like,
I
watch
should
some
check it
gameplay
out because
videos.
you know what we should do sometime? Maybe we should like take that game and we should play the martial arts of them and then just like rate them in terms of like how
Who
well
would be
they
the champion?
Yeah. I like it. How well could Mario do against, Kayla Harrison? Kayla
Marius
Harrison wrecked Mario.
Puccinowski.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Something goofy like that.
We're coming up on the end of our episode, Scott. Let's talk a little bit about entertainment. We mentioned this earlier. We both watched the Obi-Wan Kenobi first 2 episodes that dropped on Disney Plus last week. Very quick, like I'm talking like a minute around that time. How did you like those first 2 episodes?
I was into it, but there are some minor issues that I take with it. Like, and I don't want to spoil too heavily because, and I will censor myself for it because we don't like spoilers on the show, but there's a character in it, a key character, who is in certain points of peril, and is being chased. And this character, when being chased, is, let's say, unrealistically faster than, this person's chasers. Pursuers. It makes no sense. You're gonna watch it, and when you watch it, if you already watched it, okay, you know what I'm talking about. But I'm watching, I'm like, how the heck has this character not been caught? It defies logic, even for a Star Wars show. But other than
everything
else,
else,
like nitty picky stuff, right? I was enjoying it. I enjoyed the first 2 episodes.
I really enjoyed it, and they set up like, okay, now we're off to the races at the end of that second episode. Like I cannot wait. Like this is appointment viewing for me. Like every single Thursday, I think that's when they hit. Every single Thursday, I'm going to be like,
it was Thursday after midnight, at least here.
Okay, that's just going to be like how I end my nights now. I think on Wednesday night, because like if it hits on midnight your time, it'll hit at 11 my time, just in time for me to watch.
No, a day later, I think.
Oh, okay.
Thursday into Friday. That was what it was for me. Because I watched it right after my shift at work. Like I got out just a little bit early that night, and I looked at the time, and I saw people were already talking about Obi-Wan, and I was like, "Oh, is it on now? I'm out early. I could watch this." Because
I think they dropped it early. It was supposed to hit at like midnight Pacific, and they're like a couple hours before, they're like, "Surprise! It's coming midnight Eastern now."
I wonder if they'll do that every time, because that was the thing. It was actually really convenient, because otherwise, like if I don't watch it then, I don't know when I'm going to, like, it probably takes me several days before I can get to them now.
Yeah.
Like, kids and stuff, right?
I loved it. I'm so excited. I guess if it's going to be appointment viewing for me, I better figure out when the hell it comes out, because I gotta make sure I know the appointment before I make the appointment.
And I wasn't even like, dude, I wasn't even like hyped to watch the show. I was interested, absolutely. But I wasn't like, I'm waiting on bated breath for it. And then all of a sudden it hit, and I knew I could watch it, and I was very excited. Like in that moment, my interest went from like, let's say a 7 to like 11, like that.
Ewan McGregor is the best part of the prequels.
Who I rewatched the prequels. Ewan McGregor or Conor McGregor?
Ewan McGregor. He has a lightsaber.
Yes, he does. And
I mean, if we're talking Obi-Wan Kenobi, if we're talking like real life Ewan McGregor, then probably Conor.
No, absolutely. I think we're definitely.
Although, how old is Ewan McGregor? How old is he? Because like
he's in his 40s.
Okay, so
he might even be older than that.
He's not. Wait, let's look this up.
How old is Ewan McGregor? That's a good question. But I mean, how washed is Conor at this point? Do we think?
Okay, Ewan McGregor's wait. Ewan McGregor is 51 years old, which means he's around the age that quote old man was in the pub, where he basically ate Conor's hand like it was nothing.
Yep.
After he refused a proper 12 shot,
and then Conor ended up buying the bar because he's such a weirdo.
Yeah. So I think Ewan McGregor, on second thought, could take Conor because he's over 50. That's the magic age.
I think so.
Or just any UFC fighter in the past 5 years. Unless your name's Cowboy. But
yeah.
So there's a new Thor trailer as well.
Yes.
And I don't want to get too deep into this because it's just a trailer, but Christian Bale as Gore the God Butcher. looks all kinds of disturbing. I am so excited for his portrayal of this character. Like, he is going to raise some hell. You can just tell by the way like they're painting him, and like he looks like he is fully embracing this role. Like, he looks like Christian Bale. I can't remember the last time we saw him like his face doing this much work in a role. Like, he is just emoting.
Well, he's looks like he's lost more weight here too. He's in skinny Bale mode, not quite Machinist. Not quite Machinist. You ever see Machinist, by the way?
Yeah, like way back in the day. But, like, I remember like how like thin he was.
Mm-hmm. And then he did Batman next, which was so bizarre.
Hey, that's amazing that he can pull that off. Like, he's a bit older now, so who knows how difficult that is.
Not a healthy lifestyle. Please don't replicate.
Yeah, please do not fluctuate in weight so much that you're doing weight cuts and then you're having to do physical activity. Oh, wait a sec.
Basically, just yeah. There you go.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I think, like, did you have a chance to watch the Thor trailer?
I did. Yeah, it was. I mean, I'm into it. I'm definitely. When is it coming out? Is it July?
I think July.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm definitely of the movies that were coming out this year for Marvel. Was Spider-Man this year or was it December last year? I think it was December last year. Okay. So we've only had this year. We've only had Doctor Strange, correct?
And then
because Eternals, I think, was also last year in November.
Eternals was last year. There was a TV show this year, wasn't there?
Oh, it was a TV show.
Moon Knight.
I guess, yeah. I'm just thinking of the movies in general, like things that I have to get out of the house to watch. Yeah. So I think probably of the movies that are scheduled for this year, this is probably the one that I was most interested in. Black Panther's also this year. It was close. I'm definitely into that, but it's more out of, unfortunately, curiosity of how they're able to handle life in the post, Chadwick Boseman unfortunately passing.
Oh, I agree 100% with that, because like I think that it's going to be such a thing that like they're going to have to figure out. But I was distracted because I remembered that Miss Marvel is a week away.
Oh, that's right.
Disney Plus. Like, I'm just looking at the schedule right now. So Miss Marvel's June 8th, Thor: Love and Thunder's July 8th. Then we have She-Hulk in August. So we have something every month from here on out. And then Black Panther: Wakanda Forever is November.
Yeah.
But yeah, like,
whole lot of Marvel. And I'm always in favor of Marvel. I'm always excited for Marvel stuff. But yeah, looking forward to that. I think Miss Marvel also, I'm hearing the early reviews of like the first couple episodes. They're saying it's just an utter delight. Good. So I'm looking forward to that as well. That seems like a show that really should be delightful.
You know what show is delightful in a completely different way, though? Peacemaker. And you finished it.
I did finish it. Yes, I had the chance to binge it this weekend, because there were no fights. So I actually had a little bit more time to do that. Here, why don't you ask me a couple pointed questions before we kind of close out here? Because you watched it.
I say that the companion app to Peacemaker, the official companion app, should be Shazam, because the soundtrack is just banger after banger. I love the soundtrack of Peacemaker so much. But look, coming out of the Suicide Squad, which was James Gunn's first foray into the DC universe, I was like, I want to see more of that. However, Peacemaker was maybe like number 6 on my list of characters that I wanted to see more of.
Mm.
And then I watched Peacemaker. I was like, all right, I have mild interest in like seeing this show. And then like I was hooked after like the first couple of episodes. And then I was like, I just need more of this. I need more of this in my life. It is one of my favorite comic book streaming shows ever.
Interesting.
I think that it balances amazing action with really funny humor. Like, not all the jokes land, but sure. no comedy, no action comedy. No series is ever going to land all of its jokes. I don't care if you're talking Chappelle's Show. I don't care if you're talking South Park. No show, no movie ever lands all of its jokes.
You better not say Happy Gilmore.
I don't care if you're talking Happy Gilmore.
The show's over.
But yeah, I mean, it's up there with my favorite streaming shows of all time in the superhero genre.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't necessarily have that type of reaction to it. I enjoyed it. I did enjoy my time. It's I definitely liked it better than if I was watching, getting excited to watch this weekend's fights, looking at we rated at a 2 out of 5 overall, right? I liked it. I really did enjoy the show for a lot of the reasons you're kind of naming. It's funny, it's fun, it's goofy, it's totally offbeat.
John Cena's terrific in it.
You know, you get to see, and I hopefully this isn't spoiling it too much, but there are neo-Nazis who have their comeuppance, and that's always fun because who likes neo-Nazis except neo-Nazis? Yeah, if you're a neo-Nazi listening to our show, you can stop. We're not really into you. But
yeah, we got nothing for you.
We got nothing. This isn't your place. These aren't the droids you're looking for. No, I had fun with it. I enjoyed it. I think there was kind of some interesting. There's more depth to the Peacemaker character than I was really expecting there to be, and that because of the relationship with his father, which that I won't get into.
By the way, after watching Peacemaker, I went back and watched the Suicide Squad again, and it makes the repeat viewings of the Suicide Squad better, just because you're like, oh my God, there's that character. I know so much more about him. And it's like all of his stuff like holds much more weight now. I will watch. I think I probably will watch that one again now having watched Peacemaker and stuff. But yeah, I did like that there were fun little callbacks to that movie too, like very like small little jokes and stuff. That was kind of fun. I enjoyed it. It's definitely a weird story, but like it's kind of meant to be, right? Yeah, and again, I cannot emphasize enough. Like, if you think Guardians of the Galaxy is James Gunn using music effectively, I think that Peacemaker is even better use of like just amazing music.
That is right. That music's right up your alley, isn't it?
It legit is. I mean, some of it's a little bit too like 80s for my taste, but like there's a lot of like my favorite bands in there.
All right. That's fair. Yeah, I'm more hip hop, so for me, it's like, okay, that's cool. I'm not as big into like, what is it, like glam, that kind of.
Yeah, glam rock I think is the best way to classify a lot of the music used in Peacemaker.
Right. It's fine.
I'm a big glam rock fan,
but hey, that's fine. You're a glamorous dude.
I think that's a show, man.
I think so too. Yeah. So if you liked this show and if you've been enjoying any of these shows, please tell your friends, tell everybody to listen, subscribe, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you found us. And while you're at it, would you kindly follow our social handles at Brian P. Shea and at Scott_Fontana on Twitter and Instagram.
And if you want to reach us with questions, feedback, topics you'd like to hear about, or just letting us know what you're hyped about, hit us up at groundandpwnedpod@gmail.com or at groundandpwned on Twitter. Until next time, enjoy the fights, enjoy the games. We will talk to you next episode.